Do not file that immigration case. Hi, I'm Jim Hacking, immigration lawyer practicing law throughout the United States at our offices in San Diego, Chicago, St. Louis, and Washington, D.C. Listen, I know everybody thinks that their case is going to get approved, and I know everybody thinks that everything's going to work out fine, and that they believe the government when they say, if you fill out all these forms and submit all these documents, we will approve your case. But there are some cases that should not be filed. What? What do you mean, Jimbo? Well, what I mean is there are some cases that are never going to be approved. I had a lady call on behalf of her friend on my Immigration Answer show the other day, and she said that her friend was in her 70s, like the caller was. The caller has some kind of a medical condition that she's needed a helper, that she spends half her time overseas in India and half her time in the United States, and she brings her helper here with us. The helper is a man, and he's in his 20s, and he would come with her to visit in the United States. And then eventually the helper ended up marrying her friend who was in her 70s. And so the case was on file, and they got scheduled for an interview. And the friend was calling me to say, Jim, what do you think about this case? This was an age gap of 40 years. Actually, I think the lady was in her late 60s. So a 40-year age gap. And they have a very little history together. And they filed this marriage-based case. And the question was, Jim, do you think this case is going to be approved? What do you think is going to happen at the interview? And I said, this case should never have been filed. There are certain cases that are not approvable, and you should not file them, because now this person, the Indian helper fellow, has demonstrated immigrant intent. He has rung that bell and said, I want to live in the United States. I want to stay here. I want to become a lawful permanent resident. And I want to do that based on my marriage to somebody 40 years older than me, somebody whose children are older than me, somebody whose children don't even know that we're married. So what do you think happens when USCIS goes and knocks on the door of the old lady and says, what are your children's names and where do they live? And then they go talk to those children, and then the children say, we didn't know anything about this marriage to the Indian helper friend. We didn't know anything about this. Well, when you're not telling your kids, that causes big problems, because then USCIS wonders, well, if you're not telling your kids that you're married, maybe you're not really married. And this is a squirrely situation already with a 40-year age gap, cross-cultural issues, and the like. And now you haven't told your friends and family that you're actually married to this boy toy? Are you kidding me? This case is never going to be approved. And this is the kind of case that should not have been filed, because now that he's demonstrated immigrant intent, now that he's here writing just the green card application, USCIS put out a memo on February 28th that said, if you apply for an immigration benefit and that case gets denied and you have no other way of being here, you're going to deportation court. And an immigration judge is going to kick that guy out of here as fast as he can. And they're going to say, this marriage was a sham marriage. This was done to get an immigration benefit. I'm sure everybody had good intentions in this situation, but even so, the case is not going to be approved. And so with this new rule that USCIS has that says, if you're going to apply for a benefit and ride that benefit, and what I mean by that when I say ride that benefit, I mean that you're just going to, that's going to be your sole status, the only way you're able to stay here in the United States. Once that's denied, you don't have a basis to stay here. It's not like you're on a student visa and you apply for a green card and you still have your student visa. ICE, USCIS, Homeland Security says in those scenarios, we're sending people straight to immigration court. So this very nice Indian fellow should have gone back to India at the expiration of his B1, B2 visit visa. He should not have married someone 40 plus years older than him in a scenario where his spouse is not telling them, their kids, that she's married to him. It's a huge, huge problem. So there are lots of cases that shouldn't be filed. You have to ask yourself, is this case approvable? Is my spouse going to be at risk? Is my spouse going to get in trouble with ICE? Is this possibly a crime? What's the fraud unit going to do with this case? These are serious concerns that have to be gone through before you file. Filing's sort of easy. I know it's a lot of work and people get in a rush and they don't do the important thinking of just because I can, does it mean I should? That's a question I ask here all the time. Just because you may, in your heart of hearts, want to get an immigration benefit, we have to ask yourself, is the case approvable? What happens if it doesn't get approved? What's the long-term consequences of this whole scenario? So if you have a case that you want to file and you want our help, give us a call, 314-961-8200, or you can email us info@hackingimmigrationlaw.com. I mentioned we opened up our Chicago office just here recently, but we have lots of people from around the country that have joined our Facebook group. It's called Immigrant Home, so you can join us there. There's about 15,000 people in there. We also have our YouTube channel, which we post new videos 3 or 4 times a week, and we also you can subscribe to that. You can also search it for topics that are interesting to you. We try to create content so that we educate everybody and that it's all there as a resource for people. And speaking of educating people, we also do a live show 3 or 4 times a week where it's me answering immigrants' immigration law questions as much as I can, as fast as I can. And then finally, we have our TikTok. You can find us at Immigration Hacking, and we'd love to see you there. Thanks so much, and we'll see you on the next video.